but even here in Chicago, where it comes on at 9:23 p.m., it still feels kind of late.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, it says we're streaming live. We good to go, John? You want me to get started and take it from there?
It says it's just loading it, yeah. So I think that's us good to go.
All right. Well, I'll kick it off. It says it's live here, so we're not going to make sure that's so. Hi, it's Jason from Bagpipes and Ball Caps and Bagpipes.
God,
I got halfway through it. I got halfway through it.
Hi everyone. This is John from Ball Caps and Bagpipes. This is John. I'm John McKellar. I'm a Glasgow Comet baseball player in the Baseball Scotland National League, and one half Ball Caps and Bagpipes, a Scottish baseball podcast. That's Jason there. He can barely speak. It's almost 11 p.m.
I think I'm about 50-50 on intro so far. So I'm doing too well.
Hey, 300 gets you in the Hall of Fame. You always told me that. We're here with the second interview tonight with Jason Schwartz. Is it of Heavy J?
You got it. And can I just say it's a pleasure to be on Ball Pipes and Bagcaps?
I'm so screwed. I'm not going to live this down. Hey, thanks, Jason, for coming on. Yeah, it is Ball Caps and Bagpipes. I actually came up with the name of the show, and I'm the one that screws it up constantly. But to be fair, John does the intro for us normally. So John's usually the lead. This doing this now is now kind of a little bit hard for me.
Alliteration poses difficulty, you know? It makes it catchy, but it's easy to mess up.
Hey, to be fair, I'm working on about 4 hours of sleep a night. I got 6 hours last night, which is pretty good for me. I'm rolling solo because my wife's in Sweden and she left me with my two kids. So I'm staying up till about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then the kids get me up anytime between 6 and 7. And if I'm lucky, I get a nap in. So
I, on the other hand, got a good 19 hours today because I've been in bed all day since we finished up last night's interview, feeling ill. So I'm feeling a bit better now for the rest. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Jason, and it's great to have you on. Why don't you start off by telling us about your baseball background growing up? Did you play when you were younger, or if you did, to what level did you play, and what positions did you generally play?
Oh man, so I did play, but I'm going to be kind of at the extreme end of the spectrum compared to some of the other guys that you talked to. So I started off Little League, here in the States. I was absolutely the worst player on the team. We had rules that kept the coach from just having me on the bench all game. Like, they had to put me in the game every now and then. Right. So they generally, I either rode the bench or played right field. Batted last. My first 2 years playing, I got 0 hits, right? And pretty much the highlight of my Little League career, my first 2 years, because, they call a really big strike zone. You can hope to get walked, but pretty much anything within a mile of you is going to be called a strike if you let it go. So the highlights of my Little League career always involved getting hit by a pitch, right? That was pretty much the only way I ever got on base. So those were my first 2 years. Now, I don't mean to brag, but my third year, a lot came together. And I think I maybe got 2 singles, okay? And they were legit. They weren't Little League singles. They were like, actual liner, into the outfield kind of singles. Faster players might have turned them into triples, but, I was just jumping up and down on first base pretty much. Now, where I did resurrect my career, but I know you guys don't have, 10, 12, 14 hours for all the highlights, is I kind of found some success playing co-ed softball in college. And at any rate, by the way, I mean, we may get to it later, but that is where the nickname Heavy J came from. And what happened was, it wasn't that I had a lot of skill compared to anybody else, but the diamond we played on, it really wasn't a diamond. It was a very long rectangle. And so if you were a right-handed batter, you had to hit the ball about 450 feet to clear the fence. If you were a left-handed batter, you had to hit the ball about 150 feet to clear the fence, right? And so, I ended up batting cleanup. Generally, everything went over the fence or high off the fence for a double. And, it was a very friendly park, let's say. But, I had 3 years of success there. And then as soon as we moved to a different field, I went back to being about as good as I was in Little League. So
Now, you mentioned softball. Growing up in Scotland, I played a little rounders and maybe sort of a bastardized version of softball from time to time in school. For lay people like myself who maybe aren't aware of the difference between baseball and softball, could you quickly run over the kind of what would be different about a game of softball as opposed to a game of baseball? It's more than just a bigger ball, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to think about the biggest differences, of course, when you think about playing baseball and getting to more and more competitive levels, fundamentally what makes it such a hard game is that you're trying to hit this little ball that's coming at you 70, 80, 90, or even 100 miles an hour. So when you go to softball all the way, and there are different variations, but I was playing one called slow pitch, the ball is about 3 times as big, and it's just lobbed gently underhand to you. And so you can, you don't need bat speed, you don't need good hand-eye, you kind of don't need anything. It's like this, it's like baseball in slow motion, but with a bigger ball. And so a lot of the skill required for baseball doesn't really apply. Now, other than that, the rules were more or less the same. In some leagues I played in, there would be a fourth outfielder called a rover. Sometimes when I played co-ed, meaning there were men and women on the same team, there'd be some specialized rules about the batting order being, man, woman, man, woman, man, woman, or certain positions and things like that. But I would say the biggest differences between softball and baseball just have to do with the size of the ball and generally the ball coming in much slower. That said, if somebody turned on the TV and they watched the Softball World Series, which would be women's collegiate here in the US, they would see the ball not coming in slower because these would be underhand pitches coming in 70 miles an hour, but when you correct for the shorter distance. So I didn't mention that too. The dimensions of the field can be a little bit smaller. So coming in from 45 feet at 70 miles an hour is even faster or less reaction time than 100 miles an hour from 60 feet. So so the brand I played was much easier and much slower, but there are softball players who need every bit as much skill as baseball players here in the US.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That's something I've always wondered. I've heard about softball, and as I say, I've maybe played it for a version of it that's probably closer to rounders in school growing up in Scotland. It's not a game that we have here or had when I was growing up. I think there is Bubba, other Jason, softball league in Scotland now, isn't there?
Yeah, there's the one in Edinburgh, there's one in Glasgow. I think the one in Edinburgh is bigger than Glasgow, but you're still talking, I think, 16 teams in Edinburgh, and I think there's like 8 in Glasgow. So, and you get a lot of guys who play both over here in Edinburgh.
All right.
So, before we get into your artwork, I noticed that you're actually the co-chair of the Sabre Baseball Cards Research Committee. How did that come around?
Yeah, if there were a triple crown for baseball nerdery, I would actually possibly win it. So, sorry guys, too. I live on a busy street, so every now and then you'll hear a motorcycle or siren or something. But so anyways, SABRE is the Society for American Baseball Research. It attracts a lot of the biggest fans, but particularly ones who are very interested in the history of the game or statistics. And so there are all these special committees. There's special committees on the Negro Leagues, the so-called Black Sox, the team that threw the 1919 World Series, Ballpark Committee, what do they call it? SABRE Pictorial or biographical groups, all these different groups. And so maybe about 5 years ago, they started up a baseball cards group, and a lot of the members, I think, didn't even really know about that. But I started reading their blog beginning or maybe end of 2018. And at one point, the fellow who was a co-chair previously, who went on to become the president of SABRE, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you write for the blog. We've seen some of the stuff you write for your personal site. We'd love to have you here. You just need to join SABRE." And so, I did that. And then within about 5 months of that, he was elected president of SABRE and kind of needed to hand over the reins for what he was doing. And so he asked me and another guy, Nick, who was writing a lot of articles for the blog, to take over. So the main thing we do, right, is keep a fairly active blog. Maybe every 2 days or so, a new article comes up having to do with baseball cards, history, research, et cetera. We tend not to focus on the dollars so much as like just kind of the fun of collecting and spreading knowledge about maybe older sets. There's a I'll say a very active Twitter community and Facebook group around it. In terms of events and things like that, we don't do too much. I did go to a meetup in Cooperstown last May with about 6 or 7 other guys that I became good friends with. But I would say our presence is almost entirely the blog, Facebook, and Twitter, right? But we have a good time, definitely.
That is really cool. I mean, I think I came across the Saber Baseball Research Group on Twitter maybe last year, because I guess for the last 2 years I've been kind of collating people who do art in sports, and then I had a buddy who started up a card shop up here, and he's like, "You're my junk wax era guy." So I couldn't tell you about modern cards there, but anything 80s and 90s, I'm all over. So so it was interesting to see that, because we do have a chapter out in the UK. We have the Bobby Thompson chapter.
That's right.
And I haven't quite joined it yet, but I'm on the, what do you want to call it? Kind of the historical committee, and we're doing research on Great Britain players and like that there. So more for who play for the GB teams and stuff like that, more than actual people, because I said there's not that many people that have come from the UK that actually made it in baseball.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it is, for me, when I joined, I have to say I mostly joined so I could write for the cards blog. Right. But, I ended up going to a chapter lunch, a Chicago area chapter lunch, and I met a bunch of really cool guys. It just, I think there was a lot more, it had so much more to offer than advertised and then I had expected, right? It became a way for me to meet pretty much most of my best friends here in Chicago, but also a way, just through online things to connect with other researchers, or, just have a chance to be part of really cool things. Like there was, in terms of the baseball nerdery, this was something that was like a huge deal to me. Was we had our annual conference in July. We had to move the whole thing virtual, but Saber asked me to moderate a panel with John Thorne, who's MLB official historian. And, I was like, holy smokes, man, I'm going to be pretty much interviewing John Thorne. Like, how does a dude like me find himself in that position? But definitely with Saber, a lot of doors opened for me. And just in terms of like baseball related stuff, probably some of the coolest things I've done have come through joining and through the connections I've made.
Yeah.
So I would totally do it.
Like I've tagged him a couple of tweets, and he usually gets back to you on those and stuff like that there. So, I mean, the engagement that people do is just absolutely amazing. So.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, once you join, then you have connections through the directory. Like you don't even have to tag him in a tweet and hope he writes back. You just go in the directory, you can email him, or you can send a Saber message to him and he'll get the notification. You know what I mean? Like it's a little bit more access that way. The bummer because of COVID and all that, and I'm sure, y'all are still dealing with it, just like we're kind of not dealing with it here, but at any rate, the local chapter meetings and things like that have been a casualty, but we've still done a lot of fun online stuff, and just some of the neat opportunities that are there, are still just as strong, if not more active now. But I will say, one of the highlights for me was just meeting so many people here in town who I still get together with, Yeah. So, I would definitely join. That would tell them Jason sent you.
Yeah, I will. Like you get like 20 pounds or $20 off your next renewal membership for every person you recommend, right?
Yeah, the whole thing is like, what do they call it? Multi-level marketing. I have to get 11 people to join, or they're going to kind of like take away all my baseball cards. But yeah, and then you would automatically also, Jason, be eligible to write for the Saber Baseball Cards blog, because all you have to do is be a member and like baseball cards. That's it.
All right. I think you convinced me to depart with $75. I'll be on there soon.
Perfect, man. Perfect.
Oh,
So,
all right.
Jason, if I can just
Yeah,
jump in
you take
here.
back over, John.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, John's usually the host, and I just kind of take over the conversations now. So.
go to
No,
it,
I was
man.
just going to ask, again, for a lay person like myself or someone over here, what goes into your research for these blog posts that you do? Is it just dialogue with other people about baseball cards,
Mm.
or do you draw from, are there any certain sources that you draw from that other people could potentially, look up and get in, to try and, spring up an interest in that?
Yeah. So I will say, I mean, there are so many different kinds of articles, and so nobody has to do what I do, right? There are a lot of things. Like some people just write an article about their favorite card, right? And so that's not so much research, it's just from their own memories, from the heart, why does this card mean something to them? We really welcome those, right? A big part of pushing out our pieces is just kind of sharing this collective nostalgia, for collecting as kids or watching baseball as kids. So we really take a broad range of articles. I'm going to say there's probably two specialties that I bring that involve some level of research, because I also write about some favorite cards too. But so yeah, just to kind of give you a feel, one of the things that I like to do, I call it sort of my prehistory type of article. And so, for example, I grew up in collecting cards. 1978 to 88 was kind of my heyday collecting cards, and so a key feature of those sets included record breaker cards, record breakers, and highlight subsets. And so I think the first article that I wrote for the Saber Baseball Cards blog was called Prehistory of the Topps Record Breakers, right? And there was already an article on the blog about the history of the Topps record breakers from 1975 through the present. But what I did was I wanted to trace the idea of highlights and record breaker cards all the way back to the 1880s, right? And so
Right.
some of that just lived in my own head, right? Because I could say, well, the first Topps record breaker subset or highlight subset called that was 1975. But I know, 1959, they had a baseball thrills subset. So let me add that to my list. So I kind of make lists from memory or going through my own collection. But then there's, it's sort of like a sports card collector's Bible. There's something called the Standard Catalog of Vintage Baseball Cards. And what I used to do when I was a careful researcher, now I've gotten more sloppy, but when I was careful, I would make my list from my head or whatever. And then I would literally flip through this 1,000-page book that had just about every set that's been produced since, the 1880s. And, did I miss one? Did I miss one? Did I miss one? Did I miss one? Oh, look at this. Here's the set I've never actually heard of from 1922 that I
Right.
think kind of qualifies. Let me add that to my list, right? And so, so in my first article, I was able to go back all the way to the 1880s. I did a similar article next on the history of, or the prehistory of World Series cards, which also went back to the 1880s. So, the method was a cross between things I just sort of had in my memory from collecting over the years, to once I sort of exhausted what was in my own head, turning the pages of this 1,000-page book and being on the lookout. And of course, even then, sometimes you miss things. But the nice thing with the electronic format is you publish your article, and then guys in the comments, and generally they're really kind about it, they'll be like, oh, hey, don't forget the 1948 swell Babe Ruth movie set. That could be considered highlights. And then you're like, oh, okay, let me add that to my article. So that's one type, prehistory. I loved doing that. Another one I did, which is like, again, when we're talking baseball nerdery, it helps also if you studied maths in school. Did I get it right? UK
Yeah,
maths?
we call it maths. Yeah, I still get it wrong. I've been out here 18 years.
Yeah. So
you only do one math over in America. We do all of
yeah, we only do one. That's a good point. I may do like 20 of them, but yeah. And so I have these other ones. They're harder to do. I haven't done as many, but sometimes there are kind of mysterious patterns in checklists that most collectors, that they might not be evident to most collectors, but with a lot of spreadsheets and sorting things different ways, you start to learn, oh, there's actually kind of an interesting pattern to how this set was constructed. Every now and then you write one of those articles and people are like, oh my God, I never knew that. And then one guy is like, oh, dude, everybody knew that. That was common knowledge. When I was collecting the set, you know, so it's kind of hit or miss, but that's sort of my other thing. And so it's, I would say the research there is just taking these checklists and sorting them all kinds of different ways and hoping to see a pattern. And sometimes you get lucky and you find one. Sometimes you don't find one, and then you just don't write the article, right? And occasionally those would even come through requests. Like I think there was, I think there was a set where somebody was like, man, the numbering of the 1981 Donruss set is so bizarre. Look at this. It's, well, hey, perfect for Jason's outfit today. You know, the set leads off with like 4 Padres cards and then 5 Tigers cards and then 1 Phillies card and then, you know, 4 Cardinals cards. And it was kind of like this thing that wasn't quite a pattern, but, you know, anyways, that was, somebody was like, Heavy J needs to write an article on this. He needs to figure it out. So, you know, that was, I do work on request, but so those kinds of things, and you know, but I'm not above writing about my favorite cards and my favorite sets and things like that as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Jason, I'll let you jump back in.
Right. So yeah, so we can talk cards all day long, but let's talk about your artwork. So how long have you been doing this? I was looking at your Instagram and it seems like it's been fairly recent for you.
Yeah, no, I will say I hadn't joined Instagram right away, right? So I look newer there than you know, maybe on Twitter or in real life. So it all began, let's just show and tell. It all began, the origin story of Heavy J Studios was I was framing, kind of like you've got all those cards behind you. I like to frame favorite cards or favorite sets of mine. And so I grew up in LA, I'm a Dodgers fan. So I had the 1989 Topps Dodgers set, which is, you know, most of the team that was there for the 88 World Championship. And so I bought some kind of, you know, glittery fancy paper at the arts and crafts shop to make kind of just like my own matting for how I was going to frame those cards. And when I was done, I had a strip of extra, you know, glitter material. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is kind of funny because it's basically the exact width, 2.5 inches of a standard baseball card. And I had a stack of 1981 Fleer cards sitting around. And the idea just came into my head, like it'd be funny to cut out like, you know, 1981 Dave Parker. Here it is. This is my first ever card. Put it on the glitter background. And then, you know, if you guys have kind of stayed in touch with collecting in the modern age, you know, half the cards you get out of packs now are like shiny, glittery, chrome, whatever. But in the old days, right, it was just boring, plain white cardboard. And so the idea was to take sort of an old card and put almost a modern twist. And so I did that for fun. This was probably back in December. And some of my buddies came over and they were like, dude, that looks cool. Can you make me one? And, you know, with the pandemic and all of that and just having extra time on my hands, I ended up making one of these in June. So I've just been doing this kind of like, you know, as a thing, you know, since June, where I posted it online and I basically said, you know, hey, the high bid by 10 p.m. Eastern, all money to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And a guy paid $43 or $44 for a card I made. And, you know, literally I had no idea if nobody would want one or if maybe it would go for like, you know, $1.50. So when it went for like $43, $44 or whatever, I thought, oh my God, I gotta do more of these and see what happens. And I kept expecting that at some point the well would run dry, you know, like the 5 guys in the world that wanted a glitter card would have one. And then that'd be the end of Heavy J Studios. But it actually turned out that like, you know, word spread, people liked them. People would get in touch through the website, through Twitter. And these days, you know, I'll post a card every now and then, sometimes a couple in a day. And, you know, the deal's always the same, you know, first to claim for $30 to, you know, foundation. Right now I'm doing the Josh Gibson Foundation. So, you know, $30 donation for one, 50 for two, and they go pretty quick. So I've been doing it since June and I have raised now almost $6,500, all for, you know, great causes. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind, man. I never truly thought it would turn into that. But I'm thrilled that it has. And you know, it's still, for me, it's a lot of fun. And it's also, you know, for a guy like me that has boxes and boxes of cards that used to just sit in, you know, kind of sit on shelves, right? It's kind of neat because in a way it gives the cards new life. It gives them some purpose. And in terms of validation in my life, I can be like, oh, it is a good thing I've lugged these cards around for 40 years. You know, where would Heavy J Studios be if I hadn't have done that? So yeah.
See, it's funny you say that, because like I said, I had my cards have basically sat untouched since 91, maybe 92. They've gone from my mom's house to our other house to our lake house. And then my brother was out there. I was like, you got to send them over there. So when I started up my my jersey shop, I was like, you know what? I'm going to stick these common cards in everyone's sale. So it's been a lot of fun to go, all right, I've been doing team sets and going, all right, cool. You just bought a Dodgers jersey? Great. Here's 20 Dodgers cards from 1980 to 1995, and just pick random players in there. And I try to throw the good players in there too, so at least they recognize a few names here and there. But you know, it was just like, what am I supposed to do with my cards?
Yeah. I mean, that's been a thrill. The funny thing, right, is okay, one by one card at a time, I'm slowly getting rid of these gigantic piles, right? But what happens is like almost every day now, a package comes in the mail where a guy will send me a brick of cards, and he'll be like, hey, Jason, I really love what you're doing. I want to donate these to Heavy J Studios. And so here I am, right? I'm trying to thin out my collection, and you know, little by little, right? I'm cutting up these cards and sending them out in the mail, but not a day goes by, it seems like, that I don't get, you know, 100, if not 1,000 new ones. So, and I'm teasing a little, because when the guys are sending me these cards, I super appreciate it. And it's like these things are loaded, like, you know, here's Barry Bonds on the front, you know, but it's just been a funny thing, because yeah, I now probably have 5,000 more cards than when I started, which is a scary thing. Yeah.
So do you normally more specialized in, actually, before we get started, so I caught your interview with Blake. So we're not as big as Blake, but we're your first international interview. But I hear you were a Steve Garvey fan. So I wanted to show you. I got my Steve Garvey shirt on for you.
Oh my goodness. Fantastic. Now, fantastic. So strictly speaking, the worst day of my life was when Steve Garvey went to the Padres. But you know what? I have put that behind me now, and I can appreciate, as they say in Office Space, I could be a fan of the man's entire catalog at this point. But there was a time where that shirt would have been incredibly traumatic for me.
But I still don't understand why the Padres retired his number. I mean, I know the story behind it, but it was the most random thing.
You know, one of the cards I made was rather cathartic. Speaking of this, it was a fellow in San Diego area who was also a Steve Garvey fan. And, you know, I was going to do up a Garvey for him. So I actually took Garvey's first card as a Padre, and I basically pasted new elements on it to turn him back into a Dodger. And I gave it the title Denial. That was, I got to say, it helped me to make that card. You know, I kind of put him back on the Dodgers for one more year with that.
I mean, I associate with the Dodger. I mean, like, so I'm a Mariners fan by birth, but a Padres fan because my grandparents were in Yuma, Arizona. So they were bringing stuff back from Yuma for years. And so in 90 or 84, when they went to the World Series, it was like, great, the Mariners suck. I have a team that's at least decent. So I grew up a big Tony Gwynn fan because of that. You know, it was one of those things before Griffey came along. Tony Gwynn was my guy. So the whole Steve Garvey thing was just like, I don't understand it at all. So
that's awesome, man. Thank you for wearing the Garvey. That is
yeah, I mean, that was like, yeah, one of those things is like, all right, I can get Tony Gwynn, you know, everyone knows Tony Gwynn, but no one remembers Steve Garvey. So but when I caught the interview with Blake, I was like, all right, I gotta dig this out again so we can show it.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's the only Steve Garvey jersey in all of Scotland.
You can say that about a lot of my stuff I have out here. So obviously you donate the money to various charities. Is there anyone in particular, or do you just find people reach out to you and say, hey, I really like what you're doing, here's a charity I'm passionate about, and maybe sell you on it?
You know, so yeah, initially I started with the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. So in a way, like with this art thing in October, it's a little bit full circle. You know, I started there, and then you know, it kind of clicked one day that two of the players I rooted for the most as a kid, and even kind of into my college years, Dave Parker and Kirk Gibson, were both battling Parkinson's, and they each had foundations to raise money. And so I had a big stack of Kirk Gibson cards. I had a big stack of Dave Parker cards. And so I added that to the rotation, right? And then from there, I added the Jackie Robinson Foundation, the Josh Gibson Foundation, and the Shoeless Jackson Museum. So those are kind of my big six, right? Oh, sorry, I held up five. Those are kind of my big six. And but what'll happen sometimes is somebody will be like, "Hey, man, I love what the Josh Gibson Foundation is doing, but I had a good friend who just died from X. Would it be cool if I donated the money to this thing that's doing medical research on that?" And I've never said no. You know what I mean? Like it's I tend to these days I kind of focus for a month. Like this month is Josh Gibson Foundation, so when I put a card up, I'll request the donation to Josh Gibson. But people can, I'm flexible on it. You know what I mean? It's like if people have causes that are closer to their heart, I'm all about supporting that too.
So I would say, so you've started doing the cards. Do you have any artistic background, or is this just something like, I literally had that scrap piece of paper and like, this is where it comes from.
Yeah. You know what, man? I mean, it is funny. I'm going to put artists into two categories, and then I'm going to be in the second one, right? The artists who just blow me away are the ones who start with nothing and they manage to come up with something, right? And when we define art that way, blank canvas and a bunch of paint, right? A guy like me would never have any claim to being an artist. Like I couldn't do a thing with that, right? Or pencil and paper, I couldn't do a thing, right? An easier way to be an artist is to turn something into something else, right? And so, for this, what did I need? I needed basically the skills I learned in third grade with scissors and glue, right? I've gotten a little more elaborate now, like, doing some crazy stuff, cutting a little more carefully. But, at the end of the day, the skill set that I have is hardly elite, right? It's basically just trying to cut neatly, glue neatly, and then use my imagination, to kind of come up with what I think would look cool. So there's no real training, I think in high school, just like the rest of the school, I took maybe, one art class one semester. But yeah, I got to admit, like if somebody was like, now paint a picture of a cow, I would try and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say paint a picture of a truck. I said cow." I'd be like, yeah, that was my cow." You know what I mean? So yeah, whereas a lot of the people kind of in this initiative, right? This fundraiser, a lot of these folks work in so many different media, and they can paint, they can draw, they can do graphic design, they can paint on baseballs. Like I can do zero things except cut and glue. That's all I got.
Yeah. Well, it's been interesting because it said that we've had, I think, one person who's actually a full-time artist, and everyone else is their kind of side gig here and there. So it's been interesting to hear the kind of perspectives from everybody to kind of go, this is my gig and this is how I do it, or I'm a high school art teacher and this is what I do afterwards, and that there, and just seeing where people got the inspiration from. Like when we were talking with can't remember his name, Collage Baseball, he was like, "Oh, I work as an art dealer and did that, and I've had these really high-end photography books, and I take my cards and put them in the photography books, and that's just how I do it." And I was like, that's still an artistic skill, but
yeah.
It's he's like, "Well, I don't want to say I'm an artist because I know artists and I know the work that goes behind it." So
yeah, exactly. I mean, I've gotten more comfortable with the label. Early on, I'd be like, "Artist, not me," right? But I've gotten more comfortable with the label because I think I gotta say I do put a lot of thought into my pieces. I kind of, like, in my head, I picture what I think would look cool. Sometimes I do some creative things, and so I think you can sometimes, if you bring enough inspiration to something, the technical skills don't have to be elite. I definitely don't have those, but I think some of the stuff I make turns out awesome and people love it, and so hey man, I'll take it.
No, I really like the glitter. It really kind of pops. I was telling Dan the same thing. It was just like, you're right. There's so many different parallel cards now. It just blows my mind. And I was like that. But I think what you guys are doing and the glitter and how making it pop and putting it in certain ways is really cool. I mean, I'm really happy to stumble across you guys to see you guys' art. We want to call it art. So.
Oh, hey, let's do it, man. Let's do it. I appreciate that too. I do.
So are you doing anything in particular for the Negro League fundraiser? Do you have a couple, maybe Jackie Robinsons or anything like that you have out there? I know it's hard work to go find Negro League baseball cards.
Oh, I am good at that though. I am good at that. Obviously not ones from the 1930s or anything like that. But yeah, let me tell you a little bit about that. So I have officially started 0 pieces for October, but I'm not worried. I'm gonna be there. I can get it done. Don't panic. But so far I have 0 because before that came along, I had dedicated September to Josh Gibson, coincidentally. And obviously he is, the greatest of the Negro Leagues players, but the Josh Gibson Foundation is a completely separate entity from the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. So I had committed to the Josh Gibson Foundation that, hey, I'm going to be doing all these cards to raise money for your organization if you're cool with it. And they're like, oh, that'd be awesome. And so I haven't wanted to change gears yet. So, but in a way, the work I'm doing with Josh Gibson cards is going to probably inspire some of what I'm doing for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. I brought a couple samples in terms of so something that's going on right now in Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is trying to decide, how do we now account for the Negro Leagues? Do we count that as a major league, right? Right now they count the National League, the American League, and then some, the Federal League from 1914, 1915, and some things from the 1800s. But the Negro Leagues never counted as official, in any way. And so Major League Baseball is grappling with that decision right now. So I've got a couple things I'll hold up this Josh Gibson. It's probably not super easy to see. I modeled
this is really easy to see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I modeled it after the 1933 Gowdy set where it says Big League Chewing Gum on those cards. But anyways, this is modeled to look like the Babe Ruth card in the set. It's kind of the similar pose. And it's a little bit of a play on words or play on letters. I take the little R, the registration symbol, and the statement I'm making is big leaguer, right? It's big league R, so big leaguer.
That's awesome.
I got another. This is modeled after the 1934 Gowdy set, and it's modeled after the Lou Gehrig, or actually the Lou Gehrig pose from the 33, but kind of the design borrows from 1934. And then same thing where I use the little registration R to, the statement I'm making here, records are real, right? Like count the records. Mm-hmm. So things definitely got even crazier over the last few days with that. I tend to get carried away. So I decided to do like a Josh Gibson hip hop mashup. So I don't know in Scotland how familiar the bands or the labels are, but Ruthless Records, that was the label for NWA in the late 80s. And my little play here is that the Negro League,
legit.
The Negro League record books don't include Babe Ruth, right? So they're Ruthless Records, but they're still legit. Right?
I like it.
All right, amazing. Indulge me with one more. I had a lot of fun with this. Public Enemy. I got the Yo MTV Raps trading card of Public Enemy and the Josh Gibson stamp just to do this, but in their anthem, Fight the Power, right? One of the lines is about how most of their heroes don't appear on stamps. And so this is kind of a play on that. It's a Fight the Power card with the Josh Gibson stamp. So
nice.
So I'm kind of, I don't want to say I'm warming up on Josh Gibson because that would imply that these cards are, not going to be as good as the ones I make next. But I've been focused so heavily on Josh Gibson the past month that switching gears to the Negro Leagues Museum, no problem. I've got these Josh Gibson cards from, the 1980s to the present day that I can cut up. I have Satchel Paige, Cool Papa Bell, and then an event that the museum does every year, every June, but they had to skip it this year. They have an induction ceremony for what they call their Hall of Game. And these are great players, post-Negro Leagues, like Major League Baseball, great players who played the game in the style of the Negro Leagues with a lot of flair, a lot of swag. Oh, okay. And so I've gone to that in person the last 2 years, and they've inducted Dave Parker, Eric Davis, J.R. Richard, Eddie Murray, Kenny Lofton. And so part of the way I'm going to sort of build out my Negro Leagues Baseball Museum set for October 4th is to include Hall of Gamers, right? Cool. And so I'll have the Cool Papa Bell, the Jackie Robinson, the guys who legit played Negro Leagues, but I'll also have cards of guys like Dave Parker, who've been inducted as Hall of Gamers at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and I'll try to give it kind of a Hall of Game banner or something like that that really makes the connection. So I haven't started yet, other than thinking through the ideas, but I'm going to deliver. I'm going to have some cards.
Don't feel bad. Like, I've not started my stuff either. Like, my wife's been like picked like the worst week to go on holiday. It's not even a holiday. We went to go visit family in Sweden. And I'm like, oh man, like, I'm watching the kids, I'm doing interviews, I'm trying to get people interested in what's going on. So yeah, come Sunday, I finally get a chance to start asking people, hey, can you donate something for my shop? Because what I'm doing is I'm doing a raffle, because that, you know, I can donate whatever sales I could for the jerseys. And I be honest, like, if I donated like $20, I'd be embarrassed. So I've got a few people involved. We got MLB Europe involved, and they're donating something, and a couple other things there. The guy that runs the Dodger Twitter account over here has donated a Maury Wills signed jersey.
Whoa!
Yeah, so we're getting there. But yeah, and then I'll run a raffle for that. So I've got. So yeah, we're speaking. I've got. I got some 2020 cards because I got those.
Well done.
And we'll get some of those. I'm gonna try to hit up the 2020 group to see if they'll donate a few that way. And because I actually had one guy, I was buying them when they were cheap there, and I bought a couple Jack Robins for inexpensively, and I told the guy what they were for, and he threw in a couple extra cards and a box of cards as well. Just like, that's a cool program. Just let me know when anything's going there. So yeah, so don't feel bad. Like I'm going. I might get 4 hours of sleep at night if I'm lucky with all the stuff I need to catch up on.
Yeah,
I think quite a few of the guys that we've spoken to have been in kind of prep mode for what they're doing anyway. Like, a lot of guys haven't physically started with the actual action of it. They're kind of like yourself, working out just how they're going to approach things. So I wouldn't feel bad at all.
Nah, and then my fallback, right? I mean, I'm going to come through with some new cards, like 100%. I definitely am. You heard it here first.
We'll hold you to that, Jason.
This is an absolute exclusive that I'm guaranteeing it. But in addition, right, one of the things I can do is I've got some cards that I've created in the past that I still have, right? People haven't bought them yet, right? Or made donations for them yet. And so one of the things I'll be able to do is also just put a promotion in my store that, maybe it's like 10% off, all money to Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, even for stuff that's kind of just in a pile right now. So it'll be a mix of new stuff and old stuff. But I'm excited about it because I think the event itself, kind of the synergy of all the other artists, it's going to help all of us. You know what I mean? It's going to generate. I think it already has generated a lot of buzz, and there are some high end artists in the mix. You've noticed, right? Like at first I was a little bit bashful about the whole thing because just truth be told, like a typical Heavy J Studios card, I look for a $30 donation to somewhere, right? $30. Well, there are artists in this fundraiser where, $30 wouldn't buy you, the scraps out of their garbage can. They're looking for, $1,500 for one piece, right? And so I thought, geez, even if I sell 15 of these, one of these people is going to sell like 3 of their things and blow me out of the water, and I'm just going to be chump change. But the truth is, right, I think as this event generates a lot of buzz, there are going to be a lot of people who want to contribute, buyers, with all different budgets, right? And so, some of the bigger name artists might draw people in, and then they're going to look at the price tags and they're going to say, ooh, is there anybody a little closer to the $25 range? And then Heavy J Studios.
You got them covered.
Yeah,
I love the plug. Nice plug there.
I was going to say, with your Public Enemy card, did you know Chuck D is a big card collector?
So this is interesting to me. I did not know he was a card collector. I knew that he was like a big, I don't know, maybe Stratomatic player and like definitely a baseball nerd, but I didn't know that it extended to cards.
Yeah, no, we were talking. I was talking to one of the artists, Andy Brown, and who does, he goes to a baseball game, paints it there, and we were having a chat with him, and he said, yeah, he's tagged him in a couple of tweets and retweeted stuff there. And apparently, yeah, he's a big baseball nerd. And I was like, that's great, man. I love the fact that Chuck D is a baseball nerd.
Dude, well, Chuck D, I know you watch this podcast. You know what? If you get in touch, I will just give you this card. You were the inspiration. So, yeah, I need to hear from you soon because it could disappear otherrise. But
an exclusive.
I didn't know that,
Yeah, I've got Chuck D's number here, so I'll give him a shout. We need to try and reach him somehow and let him know about that card and make him aware that you want to send it his way.
What was funny was, I posted, some of these cards I've been doing, and somebody was like, "Oh, dude, why didn't you tag Chuck D?" And I'm like, "Yeah, because there's like a 0% chance that he'd be like, oh, Heavy J Studios, dude, sweet, right?" I mean, I figured this guy, like, if he even has notifications turned on, his phone would just blow up all day and overheat and melt in his pocket or something. So, but yeah, I mean, that would be the ultimate if Chuck D somehow ended up with the Heavy J Studios,
Let's make it happen. Let's do it.
Let's try and make it happen.
Do it. Let's say, we'll get on Twitter afterwards. You post it, and we'll see how many people can get it retweeted on there and get Chuck D's attention.
Yeah. So no joke. I mean, probably the closest I've come to that, but it was like incredible to me, was I sent one of my Dave Parker cards to a fella who I'd kind of met through Twitter, who's writing a biography of Dave Parker. Right now, I didn't necessarily know that he's writing biography and is like in frequent contact with the Cobra, right? I mean, you could write a biography just researching the sporting news and stuff like that, right? Well, anyways, I sent him the card. The next thing I know, he posts photos of the Cobra holding up my card.
Oh,
right?
Awesome.
Cool.
And he's like, "Yeah, I gave it to Dave. He loved it. He really appreciates what you're doing to raise money for his foundation." And then Dave Parker has a clock in his house. Somebody gave him as a gift a long time ago that basically has his career in baseball cards like around the clock. And Dave Parker replaced one of the cards in the clock with the Heavy J Studios. And awesome. I was like, okay, as far as the Heavy J Studios part of my life goes, I just peaked. Like for me, here, man, nothing's gonna match that. But yeah, if Chuck D were to call, I guess that could qualify, wouldn't it?
We'll make it happen. After this, we'll send a tweet out. We'll get it out there. I think we know enough people that maybe more high profile than us that might help us along to get that thing seen.
Yeah, and man, if not Chuck D, Tretch, if you're out there, I see you.
Aim high and expect realistic.
While we're at it, Sir Elton, if you're out there, man, we've got you covered too.
Oh man, so Jason, we've talked baseball cards. In just a minute, Bubba's going to open some for us. Before we do, I'd like to finish up each interview by asking each of the artists, as an American and as an artist and as a baseball fan, what did the Negro Leagues mean to you?
Fantastic, great question. To me, I look at the Negro Leagues as a part of baseball history where baseball history is just incomplete without them, right? I mean, the more I read, the more I learned, the more I talked to Bob at the museum, the more it just feels to me like these guys aren't asterisks or postscripts on the record books in the game. Like, you legitimately had a parallel league of guys who were just as good, and I would say better, to be honest, than the guys who are in the record books, the guys who were getting paid, and the guys that whose exploits were being told, on radios and newsreels and all of that, right? I mean, so to me, the Negro Leagues are an essential part of baseball history, right? I mean, if you want to feel like you're a student of the game and you're a fan of baseball in the 1930s, you better make sure you know the Negro Leagues players, because other than that, it would be like thinking you were a fan of baseball today and only knowing the first baseman, third baseman, and left fielder, right? You're leaving out a bunch of guys who might be as good, if not better. And so, to me, the Negro Leagues are just, they are essential baseball history, but they also, to me, recall a really fun way to play the game. You know, for me, I grew up watching a lot of 1980s baseball. There was an emphasis on speed, you know, stolen bases, you know. So, and of course, what happens is when you start building teams around, you know, these leadoff men who can steal 80 bases, these guys are also really fast in the outfield. So you're going to see like sweet diving catches and things like that, right?
Yeah.
These parts of the game aren't nearly as present today, right? You get a lot of strikeouts, walks, and homers. You hardly ever get a stolen base, or you know, speed has almost disappeared. And so, to me, the Negro Leagues also represent the most exciting brand of baseball, and it is a brand of baseball that made its way into the major leagues. Obviously, Jackie Robinson brought that brand and played it himself in the 1940s and 1950s. You know, Willie Mays, same thing, started from the Negro Leagues, brought that brand of baseball. You know, the guys I rooted for in the 70s and early 80s, you know, including Dave Parker, Joe Morgan, right? You can say that they were carrying on that legacy. But when you look at the game today, I don't think it really looks that way. But it was a more exciting brand of baseball. And you've got, you know, guys with computers figuring out that a guy that, you know, walks, you know, a guy that walks 50 times is more valuable than a guy who steals 50 bases. Okay. But at the end of the day, you know, baseball is entertainment, right? It's not life or death. It's entertainment. I think probably the most entertaining brand of baseball was the Negro League. So even as a less a historian and more just a fan of the sport, to me, that's what the Negro Leagues represent, is baseball at its highest form, from an entertainment perspective, but not to take away from the talent, right? Not like a Harlem Globetrotters kind of entertainment, but guys that were phenomenally talented, but also played the game in the way that was probably about the most fun to watch. So, yeah.
Great answer, man.
We
Thank
hit
you
the
so
hat
much,
on that.
Jason. Before we open up some cards, do you want to plug your social media?
Yeah, I can do that. So I'm a little new in the Instagram world. If you do stuff to me there, I might not know what to do back, but I am Heavy J Studios, no spaces, no dots, no dashes, no Morse code, just Heavy J Studios, one word. On Twitter, I'm a little more active. That's going to be at HeavyJ28. And I'm kind of a disappearing presence on Facebook these days, but there you just find me as Jason A. Schwartz. Of course, there'd be like 19 guys named Jason A. Schwartz. Good luck, but I'm one of them. I'm one of those.
Yeah.
How's that?
We'll track you down. We definitely promoted you on Twitter before we do that. And
nice.
so we'll track you down there. So
a Schwartz and a haystack on Facebook.
So all right. So here's the deal. I've got, let me see, 1, 2, 3. I've got 6 sets of cards. You got to pick which one you want. But before we start, I'm going to put this in the mail for you. Hey, Kirk Gibson for you.
Oh, hell yeah. Thank you. Now you were the king of favorite player, wrong team, because I love Kirk as a Dodger. I respect him huge as a Tiger, but yeah, there you go, man. The Padres
really
card.
pulled that from the pack we opened with Maz. So I was just like, I got that card here somewhere.
I am going to turn it into a Heavy J Studios. I think in November, I'm going to be directing all my money to the Kirk Gibson Foundation and Dave Parker Foundation for Parkinson's. So nice. I will use that card.
All right, yeah, I'll get your details later. I've got 2 of them because we pulled one last night too. So
beautiful. Oh, that's a great pull.
All right, so we've got 89 Donruss.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay.
1990 score.
Ooh, possible Bo Jackson.
91 Upper Deck.
Okay.
That's got the Michael Jordan card in there.
No.
Oh wait, right. Yeah. 91 Stadium Club.
Okay. Those are nice looking cards.
92 Donruss, or you can go modern and do Big League Baseball.
Oh, which, by the way, I love that set. That is the only set I've really bought this year, other than some scattered Project 2020 cards. But I'm going to go 90 score because literally this past weekend, I was opening some packs of 90 score with friends just to get the Bo Jackson, and I didn't get it. So now maybe I can get it vicariously through you.
Let's see if we can find the Bo.
Yeah, we'll put it in with the Kirk Gibson cards if we pull it out. So.
Oh, dude, that card's too good to send me. You're gonna want to keep that if you get it. But yeah,
I know. You know what? Like I've got it already. Like this is for fun for me. Like I get these just to come up and kind of relive my 90s and 80s and go. Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Okay, let's go Bo then. Let's go Bo.
Right. So we've got the Hackman, Jeffrey Leonard.
Okay, right on.
So if you have any stories about any of the players, you can just feel free to share. So we've had a few packs where we didn't know anybody, or was just kind of like So
Yeah, this is like one of these things. It's probably in the category if you don't have anything nice to say. Like for some reason with Jeff Leonard, about the only thing I remember is I was listening to a Giants game when he played for the Giants, and I think the announcer said something like, he gives the worst tips to the clubhouse helpers or something.
that's not a good
Sorry,
thing.
Jeff Leonard, if you're out there. Yeah, Chuck D just unfriended me too for being so negative, but that's all I can think of. Yeah, that's all I got on the Hack Man. He's a good hitter.
Greg Gagne.
Greg Gagne, dude, that's a sweet looking card though. I mean, that's some good action for back then.
Yeah,
That is,
not bad.
Yeah, I like the look.
Terry Kennedy.
Terry Kennedy. I remember at least one season he hit a ton of doubles. Like I want to say maybe even 50-ish doubles one year. Like
42
catcher. Yeah, okay.
And
but I mean, for
42 in the
catcher, man, he was stuffing that stat sheet a little bit.
All right, Mike Devereaux.
Yeah, Mike Devereaux. He was a Dodger for a little bit, so that was those were good times.
Yeah, that's right. He was supposed to be a good rookie there, and then
okay, when you were opening cards that year, every rookie was supposed to be a good rookie. Every rookie was straight into the sleeve, straight into the screw down case, man. That's what it was all about. You'd be like, Nolan Ryan, who's he? Oh, sweet, Jose Offerman rookie. That's what it was about.
It's funny you say that because when I got my cards over, and I got my binders, and I was flipping through it, and I probably had about 30 Jody Reed cards as rated rookie cards. I was just like, oh man, how many of those did I get?
No doubt. Oh, which reminds me, 1990 score, we could get a Kevin Moss rookie card. That was a biggie back then too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got my Kevin Moss collection here. So every time I pull a card, I send it to my buddy up who has a card shop, and like, this guy was great for one season, man.
Yeah, really for like 30 games, but yeah.
We got Mariners catcher Scott Bradley.
Okay, Scott Bradley. All right. So far, no real big hits yet.
No, we're not doing too well. All right, let's see. Mike Gallego for the A's.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he was part of the dynasty.
Yep.
It was some great teams for sure.
Oh, all right. We got a first round pick, Eddie Zosky.
So weirdly enough, despite the fact that he's probably the player who looks most like me in college, most like college Jason, for whatever reason, I don't remember the card or the name. Like I could tell you zero things about him other than evidently he was drafted by the Jays.
He went to Fresno State. That was
okay.
It. Yeah. Not a whole lot to say about it.
All right. Well, hang on to that. That might be.
Yeah, I think he gave up baseball and started hockey with a name like Zosky. That sounds like more of a kind of like I went to Toronto.
Yeah,
I'm with you on
it
that.
sounds like a hockey name.
Yeah.
Brian Holton for the Orioles.
Brian Holton. So he was a Dodger for a little bit as well, I think, as a reliever.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he just came over. That was his first season with the Orioles.
Yeah.
Gosh, Damon Berryhill.
Damon Berryhill. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Cubs catcher. Another cool looking card, by the way. I mean, I'm starting to worry this pack might have been searched because I think
I know it hasn't because I searched the pack when I got it. I bought a box off eBay with that, and I sat there and pressed it all to see what was the first card. And my buddy up north is a Manly fan, and I found actually a Manly card at the first card there. So I ruined his birthday present if he's watching. But
no. Well, there went the one good card in the box, But yeah, all right, we still got a few more. We could still get Bo. Bo is going to redeem the full pack.
Tom Hankey.
Okay, he had some pretty good seasons for the Jays, I think, in relief.
He did.
They had guys that weren't big names like Mark Eichhorn out of the pen that actually, like, it was a nice pen.
So that's the Tom Hankey record.
Oh no, seriously?
Yeah.
Like self-published or like who put that out?
It was something the Blue Jays did back in the day, and there's a whole song that goes with it. I actually had to go to YouTube to listen to it, but I actually found it in Germany because somebody had mentioned it, and I was like, I gotta track this thing down. So I've got this Tom Hankey record, and it's signed, but I don't think it's actually Tom Hankey. It's like to Sarah and Charlie, So it's like
mom and dad. Yeah. That is beautiful. Now you can put that card with it too. You could
Oh yeah, you know what? I will do that now.
a Tom Hankey shrine of some of sorts. You could have that.
It's one of those. So I have that, and then you might appreciate this. Now it's my turn to show off. I've got chocolate strawberry.
Oh, with Daryl.
Yeah.
What is that?
Daryl Strawberry did a record. You know
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it like soul music or?
You have to go to YouTube to listen to it because again, I bought it because I was like, I forgot Daryl Strawberry did a record. And
Chocolate Strawberry sounds like some kind of Marvin Gaye type stuff, does it?
But no, it's I think this is like when he was, heavily in New York and partying a lot, but before he found God and became a minister. So yeah, with Richie Rich, like that, it was the producer for that. Yeah, so he had his own studio, produced a record.
Well, if you, I mean, why not? Why not? I suppose.
All right. Well, here's the first kind of big name. We got Willie McGee.
Nice. Okay, 1985 MVP,
Yep.
Nicknamed ET. As a Dodger fan, I was rooting for Pedro Guerrero to win the MVP that year. So when McGee won it, I was actually bummed. But again, like Garvey to the Padres, it's enough time has passed. 35 years. I'm willing to just be happy for ET.
So it's funny. We all have these memories. So with John and Maz, I was jokingly saying I was wearing all my Diamondback stuff because those guys are that still cuts pretty raw for them. And for me, being from Seattle, I'm a Seahawks fan, so I can't really talk about the Super Bowl there. I just shut down and just go, that didn't happen. We didn't just hand the ball to Marshall.
Yeah. I'm still adamant that the 2004 season was ended early by a strike, right around the time of Game 3 of the LCS.
Hey, denial is very healthy sometimes.
It can be, yeah.
Wayne Tollerson for the Yankees.
I've got a Wayne Tollerson card in my very small collection, I believe. I think you sent me one of those, Jason.
Yeah, I did. Oh.
So I'm just going to tell you something funny about the Tolleson. It's not really about him as a player, but I started collecting baseball cards before I'd ever played baseball or even watched a game. Right, I kind of did it just to make friends with the kids at school who collected cards, and so bring up that Tolleson again, right? Like, okay, as baseball players, you guys could probably describe, well, what did he do? He finished his swing, and it's not your typical baseball pose, but okay, right? Well, anyways, I just had stacks of baseball cards, and some of them would have pictures kind of like that, and I would just assume like, oh, I'm a baseball player. A popular pose like 78 Nolan Ryan was, he just kind of had his arms above his head, like, glove and a ball. And so until I watched a baseball game, I thought that pitchers threw the ball like this. So some of those poses could give people the wrong idea. Like in Scotland, where there's not a lot of games going on, people might get that Tolleson and imagine
it's amazing. It's amazing how we connect dots as children, isn't it? Before we really understand, like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
All right. We have Stan Javier, another one of the dynasty with the A's.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Yeah, that team was loaded, man. That team was loaded. And that team was fun. We were talking about the Negro Leagues being a fun style of baseball. Those 1988, 89 A's teams, those were fun to watch.
Yeah, those A's were loaded all right. They were loaded with something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Most of my collection is actually Canseco and McGuire. Man, I still paid $50 for 86 Fleer Jose Canseco card back in like 1989, and yeah, that didn't go up much. All right, so actually,
we're not doing great.
All right, John Olerud rookie card.
Nice.
Oh, sweet. Okay, that was a legit, very, very good hitter. Very good hitter. Yeah. I mean, during his peak, like a guy that you might have thought would go into the Hall of Fame or something. And then, distinctive about him was even playing the field, he'd wear a helmet, right? And so he really could not get hit in the head unprotected. Wow. Yeah.
See, I was obviously, Olerud was kind of in his prime when I started watching baseball back in 2001. and I was aware of the helmet, and I always found it really funny that he wore a helmet in the field. I didn't know it was because he had a brain surgery. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was his senior year in college at Washington State.
Right.
He had a brain aneurysm, and they advised him to wear a helmet when he was on the field. So I went to the same high school as John Olerud.
Oh, no doubt. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
So he graduated in '86. I was 8 years later. But so he was kind of the legacy. He was always our guy. So I was a big Olerud fan all through and through. So I got to see him take batting practice probably about 91 back there and just destroyed every ball he saw.
Yeah. I mean, great pure hitter for sure.
So yeah. All right. We have 2 cards left. We have Marquise Grissom rookie card.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, Marquise, he and Delino DeShields came up kind of around the same time for the Expos, and it just looked like, oh man, this team is going to be tough to beat with these guys. In the case of Delino, they were able to trade him for Pedro Martinez, so that worked pretty well for the Expos. Grissom, I feel like he was all right, but not a star, but definitely Marquise Grissom, that was going into little penny sleeves after that.
I'll put it in a penny sleeve now just for old time's sake.
Exactly.
And we got our final card. We've got
come on, Bo.
Mike Stanton.
Oh, darn it. Oh, shoot, man. But rookie, right?
Yeah, it was another rookie. So yeah. So we got 3 rookies
in a row.
Clearly the sort machine wasn't working very good that day.
So this could be, for example, John, this could be a Sabre Baseball Cards article, is the proportion of rookies in sets, because in the old days there would be rookies, but generally it was the companies would focus on who the starters were expected to be, and so if it were a small set that would maybe only have 12 players per team, generally it would be established players. Well, by about 1990, when this pack was from, companies felt like the selling point of their set was to have the hot rookies. And so it wouldn't be unusual to get 5 rookies in a pack. So somebody for the Sabre Baseball Cards blog could actually do a study of 20 years of baseball card sets, count up the rookies, make some bar graphs, and show some trends. So
awesome.
Yeah.
We're getting John right on that there. He says to go, it's all shite.
No, you mean I like John Olerud, and I've heard of Marquise Grissom, and Mike Stanton obviously pitched as part of the Yankees dynasty in the 90s, so can't complain there. None of it was shite. Certainly, I can tell you one thing that certainly wasn't shite was this interview, Jason. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and hopefully we get a chance to catch up with you again sometime.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thank you for hosting me. I know it's pretty late where you guys are. All I can say, though, is when Chuck D calls, you're going to feel like every minute was worth it. You're going to be like, hey, we were part of that.
I feel that way already, Jason. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I shall doff my cap to you. My Glasgow Comets play an issue.
That's an all cap. My son is like an amateur astronomer. That's probably the one ball cap he would wear,
I might be able to arrange for one to be sent over.
That would be sweet.
What he's not telling you is the other team in Glasgow is the Galaxy. So
the other team in the Glasgow doesn't matter. This is the one that matters. This is the big team. That's the jersey right there that matters.
I think a lot of physicists, a lot of really top physicists, like in the history of physics, I think are out of Glasgow as well, or at the university there. Anyway.
That's true. Yeah. There's a lot, like a big physics department. And one of our many universities. For a small city, we have a lot of universities. And physics is one of those things that's been a boon in Glasgow.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome to do this, to promote the fundraiser, to talk to all of the artists like me, and I really appreciate it. And if I can ever help you guys out with anything, not a problem. And if you guys want to tell me your favorite 1980s players, I have Heavy J Studios cards coming your way on the house.
Amazing.
Awesome, man. I really appreciate that.
I know who John's asking for. I have no problem about that. So.
Who's that?
Oh, come on. It's Thurman Munson.
Is it Thurman?
What? Munson died in '79, mate.
Yeah, but you can still get cards.
Yeah, boy, I'd have to cut up a nice card for Munson. But
Hold on. I think I've actually got a Thurman Munson card here somewhere. I go through all my cards, and anytime I see something John might like, I have it. Hold on. I actually just organized it today.
Yeah, we really need to get together and
All right.
to pick those up from you.
So, I'm going to put this in the mail, but here you go. That's your Thurman Munson card.
Awesome.
Yeah, right on, man. Okay, so I'm gonna go Munson and maybe Griffey. Would that be the way to go?
Cool, man. It works for me.
Munson and Griffey. Okay, guys. All right. It may take 3 weeks in the mail, but on the way.
It's all good.
You're a great man, Jason. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, take care, guys. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jason.
All right.